Imagine a world where the Roman Empire was still at its peak today, a world where knights in shining armor still roamed the European countryside, and the Ming dynasty still ruled China. It sounds like fantasy, right? But for one civilization, this kind of unbelievable longevity was a reality. Forget Rome, forget the Greeks, forget every empire you've ever learned about. They are all fleeting moments compared to the colossal timescale of ancient Egypt. For 3,000 years, that's 3 millennia, the kingdom of the Pharaohs stood against the sands of time. How? How did a civilization born in the Bronze Age survive long enough to see the rise of iron, the birth of philosophy in Greece, and the founding of Rome? This wasn't just luck, and it wasn't just about building giant pyramids. It was a masterclass in stability, a symphony of geography, religion, and sheer human ingenuity that created the most enduring empire in human history. Today, we're not just looking at artifacts. We're unlocking the secrets to their 3,000-year reign. The story of Egypt's endurance begins not with a king, but with a river. The Nile. To the ancient Egyptians, it wasn't just a body of water. It was the giver of life, a god in its own right. Every year, like clockwork, its waters would swell, flooding the surrounding valley and retreating to leave behind a layer of rich, black silt. This Kemet, the Black Land, was phenomenally fertile, allowing for massive agricultural surpluses with relatively little effort. While other civilizations struggled with unpredictable rains and famines, Egypt had a reliable annual miracle. This food security was the bedrock of their stability. It meant they could support a large population, a professional army, a class of scribes, priests, and, of course, the monumental construction projects that still awe us today. But the Nile was also a unifier. It was a natural highway, connecting the entire kingdom from the southern cataracts to the northern delta. A boat could drift north with the current and sail south against it, propelled by the prevailing winds. This made communication, trade, and military deployment incredibly efficient, stitching the kingdom together into a single, cohesive unit. Beyond the fertile banks of the Nile, Egypt was a fortress built by nature. To the east and west lay vast, unforgiving deserts, the Red Land. These were formidable barriers to any invading army. To the south, the Nile's cataracts, a series of rocky rapids, made large-scale naval invasion from that direction nearly impossible. And to the north, the marshy Nile Delta and the Mediterranean Sea provided further protection. Egypt was effectively an isolated oasis, insulated from the constant turmoil and migratory waves that destabilized its neighbors in the Near East and Mesopotamia. This geographic isolation gave Egypt something priceless: time. Time to develop its unique culture, its complex religion, and its centralized political system without constant outside interference. It allowed for long periods of peace and prosperity, where art, science, and architecture could flourish. The pyramids weren't built in a war zone, they were the product of a secure and confident civilization. This physical security was mirrored by a profound psychological and spiritual stability, centered on the concept of Ma'at. Ma'at was more than just a goddess. It was the fundamental order of the universe: truth, justice, balance, and harmony. Every aspect of Egyptian life was dedicated to upholding Ma'at. The pharaoh was not just a king, he was a divine intermediary whose primary job was to maintain Ma'at on earth. When the Nile flooded on time, the harvest was good, and the nation was at peace. It was proof that the pharaoh was successful, and the gods were pleased. This belief system was an incredibly powerful tool for social cohesion. It meant that obeying the law and serving the state was a sacred duty, a way of contributing to cosmic order. It justified the pharaoh's absolute power and created a deeply conservative society that valued tradition and continuity above all else. Why change a system that was clearly blessed by the gods and had worked for centuries? This ideology was the glue that held the empire together through thick and thin. Of course, no empire lasts 3,000 years without some serious bumps in the road. Egypt's history is punctuated by what historians call intermediate periods, times of civil war, political fragmentation, and foreign invasion. Yet, what is truly remarkable is not that these crises occurred, but that Egypt always recovered. After the collapse of the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom rose, restoring unity and power. When the Hyksos invaders conquered the Delta, native Egyptian pharaohs eventually drove them out, initiating the glorious New Kingdom, the peak of Egypt's imperial power. The cultural template was so strong, the idea of a unified Egypt under a divine pharaoh so ingrained, that it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Even foreign rulers like the Libyans, Nubians, and later the Persians and Greeks often adopted Egyptian customs, titles, and religion. They didn't so much conquer Egypt as they were absorbed by it. They became pharaohs themselves to legitimize their rule, continuing the very traditions they had interrupted. It was the ultimate testament to the resilience of Egyptian culture. So the secret to Egypt's 3,000-year reign wasn't one single thing. It was a perfect storm of factors. A life-giving river that provided food and unity. Natural defensive barriers that provided security. A powerful ideology of divine kingship and cosmic order that ensured social stability. And a cultural identity so powerful that it could absorb conquerors and recover from near-total collapse time and time again. While other empires rose and fell like waves in the sea, Egypt was the shoreline, battered by the tides of history, but fundamentally unchanged for millennia. It's a story of stability and resilience that remains unparalleled in the human saga. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this journey back in time fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the greatest stories history has to offer. We'll see you in the next one.